Today we have a subscriber question. It is from our Google Ads tips and tricks video, and here's the comment. Hi, Joseph. I discovered you from your comment on Reddit's PPC community. Could you please explain what you mean around the 2 minute and 18-second mark, where you were talking about ROAS in a way a beginner can understand? I can't seem to wrap my head around it. No problem. And I think that's a great question and it's a great comment. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the clip and then I'm just going to answer it, but of course, provide more elaboration. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play the clip right now. Stay tuned.
Next one is conversions. So maximizing conversion value versus conversions itself. Conversions really work when you have a low price point. So if you have like a $20 price point, and then you have a whole bunch of products that are 100, that may not be the best option for conversions, right? Because you're optimizing to conversions. So think about it when you buy anything, right? Like people can, the cheap stuff always sells the best, right? The higher price stuff, that's a little more difficult. So what you need to do is that's why conversion value is there, because that drives up that automatically drives up the ROAS. Where it gets a little more nuance is like targeted ROAS. That for that strategy, you actually aim very low, and then that you enter the auctions for the cheaper people, if you will, and that drives up the ROAS itself. I've done that personally, and that works. I'm actually do a paper on that actually, and I think that's an amazing strategy that I've done with targeted ROAS and targeted PMAX ROAS as well. For conversion value, it's a no-brainer. It'll let it just auto optimize do that. I think that's probably your best strategy. And again, the conversions are not, you shouldn't dispel it, but it definitely only works better when you have a lot of similarly priced items versus, conversion value, because you really want to maximize your sales. You want to aim for that higher, those higher returns.
Thank you for watching the clip. So in that clip, I mentioned three different buying methodologies, right? I mentioned max conversions, max conversion value, and then t-ROAS. So let's talk about the first one. Let's talk about maximum conversions. So in this, usually there can be value attached, but it's not a differentiator, right? Like max conversion value, which is the next one we're going to talk about. For this, it's just max conversions. That's all it wants. So in this case, it works best when there's one product or say various products that are the same price. So say you have a product that's 800, 900, 1,000, and 1,100 bucks. Those are four SKUs that are roughly the same price. Roughly, the average is about 1,000 bucks. Only $300 difference between the high and the low, right? In this case, max conversions wouldn't be a bad option, right? Now it'll skew towards a cheaper option, right? More or less, but that's just human nature, right? More or less, it'll just keep going after that sale, but it doesn't matter if it's 800 or 1,100. It'll just, human nature will probably just sell more cheaper ones, right? But it's still, in this case, it would actually work okay. The other issue or the other point for maximum conversions is like submit lead forms, right, for leads or for lead magnets. So say you have a download ebook option you want people to do on your site. So here you would actually, if you were trying to get as many download ebooks, this would be the option, right? So anything that's lead orientated, lead magnets, like I said, you can even do purchases, but it won't recognize the high and the low purchases, right? It'll just register a purchase as just a purchase, right? Depending on the optimization event that you assign it. So in essence, any purchase conversion is a win. The next one we have is max value. Okay. So for this one seeks the highest value possible. Now you have to have your value plugin for this, right? Whether it's an API, whether it's a connection with Google Analytics or whatever you have that hooks up, that plugs the pipes to tell you how much that conversion is, right? Or what it's assigned. So for this, it actually works almost like the other direction. It's trying to get as much value, as much return or purchase value as possible from the total day, right? Or whatever you sign it. So in this case, say we have a item that's we have the same items, right? We have 800 to 1,000 or 1,100. But then let's just say we have a $50 item. Let's say we have a $100 item, right? So what's going to happen is it'll, even though you have these random items in there that are a lot lower, whereas for max conversion, that'd be great. $50 items, hey, you could sell those all day, right? But when you have a situation like max value, what it's going to do is it's going to actually limit how many lower items it sells. Why? Because what it's doing is it wants to go after those high values, right? That's when it's doing its best job. But let's say we're selling um, let's say we're selling sunglasses and a $3,000 e-bike, right? So a $50 sunglass or $100 sunglasses, right? You can sell those you can sell those all day, right? The attribution window, which is the window from when you view it or click to when you purchase, is very tight. I would say it's probably a day and a half, or even a day, or even the day of, right? Because it's cheap. It's $50. Now, say like we're looking for an e-bike from the same store. Well, an e-bike, I mean, that's a $3,000 item, right? So the attribution window is a lot wider, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to look, you see the ad, you're going to go look, you're going to look at reviews, you're going to look at YouTube, you're going to do all these things. So you're going to go shopping and all these things. It may take, instead of 2 days, it may take a month and a half, 2 months, 3 months even to make that purchase, right? Because it's so expensive. It's $3,000. But what'll happen is the maximum conversion value, it'll actually try and get as many of those $3,000 bikes as possible, because what it's doing is trying to get that high return. That's its programming, right? Now, luckily, you'll have probably some other items built in, right? Some $500, $600 items, and it'll optimize to those as well. So in its mind, it'll be like, well, hey, I may not be able to get that $3,000 purchase, but maybe if I get four $500 purchases, that's not a bad bet either. But as far as the $50 items, man, you could sell 20 of those and it would only be $1,000. Or even if you sold 10 $50 items, it'd be $500, right? In its mind, it'll limit how much low spend it'll do unless it can't see or can't find the marketplace for those medium and high priced items, right? But it's going to go as hard as it can to sell those to get the highest return possible. And that's how max conversion value methodology works. Now, the issue here, and actually I have another window here I actually want to take you through. The issue with this is the conversion value. So I see this all the time, and this I caught on the audit I did. So here they had the purchases, and that's, I guess, roughly signed right. But then they put a conversion value on submit lead form, right? Or the newsletter sign up, right? I don't know if I'd necessarily do that, right? Because what's going to happen is you see how these are primary events. So when you do say if you do there's only two options you have. You have a primary and secondary event. So what happens in any account when you set a primary and it's a conversion value campaign, it'll go after that. So that's when you start having and I don't have it here, but say you had add a cart and say you had 30 add a carts and 30 add a carts equaled $2,000 in conversion value because someone assigned a value to that. It's going to, guess what it's going to do? It's going to go, oh, let's go just get add a carts all day instead of going after purchases. Do you see how that works? So you have to be really careful what you sign as a primary event because a primary event assigns a conversion value. Got me? If it's a secondary event, it will not assign it. It'll just watch it or just take it into account. In theory, it should take it into account, but the primary event is what you always want to optimize to because that gets you the conversion value credit, right? So here, this 67,000. It'll optimize to that. But let's just say for a minute, I don't know why this is an audit, by the way. So some here it got 2200 conversions here that equal 1,000. Well, what happens if somebody put like $1,000 for this? This would equal 200,000. So in its mind, it would actually skew the buy towards submit lead form. Do you see how that works? So you have to be really careful, my friends, what you assign a primary and a secondary event, when you do conversion value. You got to be really careful. You have to really understand what you're doing, especially when you're using multiple types. Like, say, if you assign a conversion value to a submit lead form, which you shouldn't, right? So keep that in mind. Um, the next thing I want to talk about is t-ROAS. T-ROAS is really interesting. I've really had some great slam dunks. I challenge anybody to check out my YRV Dynamics LinkedIn page. I have some great screenshots there on t-ROAS. So for this example, let's kind of take a step back and let's talk about our bidding marketplace and our store, right? So we have low price items, medium price items, and then high price items. Well, with the low price items, let's just say in Google's eyes, right? This represents 50% of the people, and it's in our targeting. Medium priced items represent 35%. High priced items recommend 15. This makes sense, right? Because a high priced item, it's only a certain amount of people. In its mind, and like we were talking about, low priced items are easy victories. Medium priced items are a little bit more difficult, if not more difficult, depending how high it is, but you can win there. And those people, right, are only available half the day right here. The low price item, they're easily available, right? So we know we can get a low price item person for like, whatever, a Snickers bar or anything you want. For those people are very easily and readily available, right? The sunglasses, etc. For a $500 item, well, these people are kind of busy, so they're only available half the day or portion of the day. Now, if you want to get the high price item, that $3,000 e-bike person who's has 4 jobs and is trying to make ends meet or whatever, he wants to buy this toy, those are only select hours he's available, right? So I wanted to really make it drive home that low priced item people are available generally if they're easy to find because it's a cheaper price. Medium price people, a little bit more difficult. High price item, they're very hard to get, right? And another thing too is you have to, depending on the attribution window, it depends how many times you need to target them, right? You may have to target them a bunch of times to get that sale. Okay. So this takes us to this graph. So here, this is our sale window over a week, but let's just say this can even be a month, really. So, but I think a day probably translates what I'm about to say. So with t-ROAS, right? And I think this is what where a lot of confusion lies with t-ROAS. When you set up a t-ROAS campaign, most people think, oh yeah, I want to set it for like a 6 ROAS or 7 or 10 ROAS, right? Of course. Yeah, of course you do. But that's not how you set it up. You should set it up very low. You should set it up 3.5. And there's a very good reason why. Like I was saying, with low wins, let's just say if on day 1 you just start, it gets some low wins. The ROAS is like a 1 or 0.5. It's nothing, right? It stayed low, didn't do anything. However, day 2, it just all of a sudden took off, right? But on day 1 also too, I want to mention the medium price testing was inconclusive. High price testing was inconclusive. So it just was a dud. But day 2 was a different story, right? Because it was learning. So on low price item, it was a good win, right? So it opened up. It was like, well, wait a minute. The market's moving pretty good. The actual marketplace, the bidding marketplace is opening up. So let's open up more. Let's just try and get some more higher price items, push them out. Let's see if those medium people are there. And it won, got that. Then it says, well, shoot, if it's that quick, if it's moving that fast, that's quick. Let's open up all wide. Let's go after let's go after the whales, right? That's what they call in sales, the whales, the high priced items. And boom, they get some sales. So all of a sudden, t-ROAS does really good. But how did it do good? It did well because you enter the marketplace low, right? And then it worked itself up to like a higher value by entering all those bidding levels, if you will, right? Same goes here for day 3. Day 3 does good. So if you notice, low ROAS will always, the low bids will always do well. And then all of a sudden it stayed at medium. Say you just got a couple $500 hits and that was it. And that was it for the day. However, the high test was inconclusive. Here on the last day, well, you're kind of more learned, right? Here it's the whole, and that's another thing too about t-ROAS campaigns. So they're learning as they go along. And actually max value is the same way too. I don't mean to say max value is a dumb thing or anything, but they both kind of have the same algorithm. But with t-ROAS, what happens here is, okay, well, it learned, and you on this Friday, there just tends to be, for some reason, people get off on that time early, whatever. So we already know the low people, or the lower price items, or people into lower price items are there. That's an easy win. The medium was so-so. For some reason, those people, just weren't available. But all of a sudden, the high people took the high price items took off. So it entered, no matter what, it'll always enter low, right? Chances are it'll always enter low, but it'll always finish in the medium or the high. And that's the secret of t-ROAS. Because again, when you enter the marketplace low, you want to get those low wins. And it's almost like a gate. That's the best way to explain it. A gate opens up where the algorithm allows you to go to the next bids, right? And this only happens, and unfortunately, the secret t-ROAS is when you have a lot of items, right? Because you have the lower price items that allow you to go through each gate. So if you go through the low gate and you get all those wins, you win in all those bids, and the algorithm says, hey, bump this up. We got to go to the next level. You go there and boom, that's how that works, right? So always think of it like this. With t-ROAS, when it's well trained, after you know what you're doing, it can be quite profitable. And I've made this model work. And then here on the last slide, I want to say I have the t-ROAS, basically the campaign learning structure, right? Again, even with max value, it's the same. It is kind of the same way. The longer the campaign, right, or the longer it's alive or whatever working, the more it becomes learned. So when you change it, right, that's why I always tell my clients, when we have a working t-ROAS campaign, man, be careful. Do not change it too much. Any bids you do, anything at the I believe $110 is what John Moran says. $110 above. If so, say you want to do like a $300 campaign, you won't only do it at 20% increments. Why? Because when you say you do it from 110 to 400 for the day, it throws all this off. It has to relearn. But anything under 110, you can do 50 to 100 and it won't affect it. But some reason 110 is where the issues are, right? So you have to only do it in 20 or 25% increments. So keep that in mind. And that's really it. Thank you for listening. And I really appreciate the question. I thought it was an amazing question. And I'm glad I could elaborate. So thank you so much. And I hope all of you have a nice day.